All right, so today we're going to be talking about how to introduce ourselves or yourself, and then we're going to do a quick check-in, and then we'll do, as we always do, the accomplishment you're most proud of and a place where you're stuck. So we're going to be, like I said, we're going to be talking about how to introduce yourself, and we are all on a bazillion calls and webinars, maybe teaching remotely, and we need to be able to say hi to people and let them know who we are. Maybe you don't have to be this goofy, but friendly works. Friendly is always good. Nice smile. So what question do you hate to get the most? So the question I most hate to answer, and why I picked the topic today, since nobody had an idea for this morning's conversation. So the question I most hate to answer is, introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself. How did you get to be a consultant? Anything that kind of like smells like that. I don't know. I don't know why that is so difficult for me, but I must not be alone, because when I Googled how to introduce yourself, I'm not kidding, 267 million searches for that topic. So that made me feel a lot better. Okay, it's not just me that has that anxiety. So who are you? So if I was introducing myself, I could start off by saying, hi, I'm Ann Price. I'm president of Community Evaluation Solutions, blah, 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 blah. I could talk about my work at AEA and maybe some of the colleagues that I've met there. That's my compadres in the community psych TIG from a couple of years ago. I could talk about the fact that I mentor a lot of students and new evaluators. So this is my practicum student from a couple of years ago, Kara, and Kara just finished a fellowship at a public health department in Wisconsin, and she's fabulous. She actually won an award at Rollins School of Public Health based on data that she worked on while she was at CES. So we're super proud of Kara, and I love working with young people. I could talk about the fact that I love to travel. So this is a shot of me. My family, some of my family, my oldest isn't in this picture, did a hike in on a glacier in Alaska last summer, back when we could travel, because I love to travel. I'll go anywhere. And I could talk about the fact that I teach on how to evaluate community coalitions. I could talk about the fact that I'm turned into a pretty good sourdough bread maker over the last couple of months. So I could talk about a whole lot of things. But the thing to think about when you're talking about yourself is, what do you want to be known for? Because that's what people will clue into. That's what they're going to pay attention to. So if you want to be known for someone that does fabulous international development work, then that's probably what you need to be highlighting. If you want to be known as someone who does a lot of great prevention work in the communities on health equity, then that's what you need to be talking about, right? So think about, what is it that you want to be known for, and how do you distinguish yourself from all of the other pieces of candy out there, right? Because evaluation, certainly our field has really grown. That's a great thing, but it also means that there's a lot of other people who are responding to those proposals, or trying to work with community clients or nonprofits or foundations. So the thing to think about is, your introduction does not have to be a canned speech. It's not something that you have to be that you have to memorize. You certainly don't want it to be robotic. And how you introduce yourself will depend on the situation you're in. So for example, if I'm out in a community coalition, I might want to highlight the fact that I work on a team that provides evaluation technical assistance to 159 community collaboratives in Georgia. And that I have also worked with coalitions across the country, that I teach on evaluation of coalitions. if I'm talking to my fellow evaluators, I might want to highlight that I'm very active in AEA, that I'm the nonprofit foundation TIG leader, that I'm active in my local affiliate, right? So put yourself in that situation. So you want to think about it, you want to highlight certain things, but you also want to be cognizant of who you are talking to at that time. So a new term that I have learned recently is, I don't know if you know what a VAS is, or a VAS, whatever it is, but it's a value articulator statement. So this is Mel Abraham that I didn't know anything about until recently. I'm taking a coaching class called Speak Up to Level Up, and Heather Sager is the coach. I learned about it through Ann Emery. And Heather had Mel come into a Facebook Live session a couple of weeks ago. This is not that session, but I found this on YouTube, and I wanted to play a little bit about it because a value articulator statement is a particular type of introduction. And so let me see if I can get this to play for you. I'm not going to play the whole thing. It's about 20 minutes long. So I'm only going to play a couple of minutes towards the end.
I help X and do Y so that Z. And what I've done is I've added something on this because it's great to be able to say, I know who I help to do what, which is the Y, so that they can have a certain result, which is the Z. But how do I do it distinctly? I want to bring that distinction in to raise the value that in the eyes of the consumer. So what I did is I added on to it this concept of saying, unlike A because of B. And A and B is how you articulate your distinction in the marketplace. So let's look at this in this context. I help X, X being who do you help? And that's the who part of the framework. Do Y, which is what do you help them with? What do you help them with? It's kind of the results. So what do you help them with? So that Z, which is really the result you help them get. Okay, so X is who, Y is the problem and the result, and Z is the result. Then I say unlike A, which is what are the customer alternatives? So for instance, they can go to any other business consultant or strategist. They can go to any other person that works with entrepreneurs. So they've got, in my case, they can go to other alternatives. So I want to state those alternatives, but I say, unlike those alternatives, because I have a unique distinction. And state my distinction, which is the B. So hopefully that...
Here's Mel's value articulator statement. Excuse me. So I help X do Y so that Z, unlike A because of B. I know it sounds like a really bad math problem, right? And for a data nerd, math was not my fave, right? So his point is, in the example, when you go listen to the video, he's talking about how he was in a situation in business and they interviewed, I don't know, I think he says like 3 different consulting teams. And at the end, they asked one of them, why should we hire you? And in all the times that I've been a consultant, all the years I've been a consultant rather, I've only been asked that, I think, kind of one time. I try to differentiate myself in that first meeting with clients, but that's what the value articulator statement is supposed to do. So how are you different? What are you offering? Who are you helping? What's your goal? And how are you different from all the other folks out there who are competing for that job? It could be a job talk. It could be, you responded to a formal RFP. It's not atypical that they would bring in the top 2 or 3 of the consultants they're looking at and have you do a presentation, right? So the value articulator statement is something that will help you distinguish yourself from the other people. So getting back to the introduction. So here's the tip. Practice, practice, practice. I've really been working on how to introduce myself for the last couple of weeks, because that's like how tripped up I get about it. I'm not kidding. And so I mentioned Heather Sager, my speaking coach, and one of the things that she talks about a lot is word vomiting, like every day. I know that's really just a beautiful image I just gave you there, but practicing answering questions that you might typically get, right? And you can kind of brainstorm what those questions would be and just practice every day. You might even record yourself answering those questions. So it's really important to practice both your introduction and your value articulator statement. So if I were going to have a value articulator statement, and I really hadn't worked on it until I was prepping for this session, so it might go something like this. I help community leaders understand the root causes of their community's problems so that their work contributes to real and lasting change, unlike many focused on program outcomes alone. And I got to tell you that the differentiation feels a little competitive to me, and that doesn't feel great. So I kind of softened my comparison statement there. And in the video, Mel takes you through several examples. So they're not like in your face at all. Some of them are pretty soft, but it is important. Another way I differentiate myself, and you'll have to think about that for yourself, is that I am a community psychologist and I bring that perspective to my evaluation work. So that's an example of a value articulator statement that I'm working on. So guess what? Now it's your turn. So remember I said we didn't do the quick check-in in the beginning. I'm going to have you practice introducing yourself to the group.